It's happened. It's actually Massive have done one thing correct in the past few months. Go them. I'm not going to call it a nerf because it was not intended to be a multiplicative stat anyway. The HeartBreaker stack building was being applied as a multiplier. Everyone knew this. If you didn't know this, you'd be living under a rock. Sorry. But it was never intended to be a multiplier. They had said from the off that the only things that they are willing to actually change with HeartBreaker is one, how the stacks are working, such as them being a multiplier, and putting them as to being additive. Some people were in denial and not realising this was coming and thinking HeartBreaker was going to stay the same. Others realised that this will be coming eventually and got on with it. And the other thing that they were wanting to change with HeartBreaker is how it was interacting with pulse resistance, because you could have 100% pulse resistance, someone could shoot you in the head with HeartBreaker, and you would still be pulsed. Blah. That's a PvP thing. I don't do PvP, so if anyone has any suggestions on how to counteract HeartBreaker in PvP, go nuts, the floor's yours. Anyway, it's been balanced. I'm not even going to use the word nerf because it still works exactly how it was meant to. It still is technically, from a mathematical and statistical standpoint, the most powerful AR setup you can get in the game. There are others that are now more comparable depending on how you want to play. This balance check has added balance and variety to the DPS standing within Division. That being said, there is a few setups that have basically not been changed at all. From all the testing that I've been running, I did a previous video which I will link somewhere, maybe in a card in the top right or just in the description, of where I compared different builds with the chest, not using a chest, using something else instead, different weapons, how they all compared as a DPS ratio across the board. You can go check that here. Basically, if you were not using the chest and you were using anything else, I recommend using Closer for Perfect Spotter because you're pulsing things. But if you were not using the chest, your average DPS drop is 7.98%. This is the difference. To put it into perspective, my top end damage that I was doing on the build I typically run with this, I was doing 1.6 mil. To be precise, it's 1,622,676. That was my absolute top end damage. So just peeking into the 1.6 mil. My top end damage now is 1.4 mil, 1,479,976. So I'm creeping up on the 1.5. So I've gone from doing just over 1.6 to doing just under 1.5. I have not dropped much damage at all. However, if you were using the HeartBreaker chest, people have been dropping anywhere, depending on their setup, headshot, crit, how many reds or blues or whatever they got running on, people have been dropping up to, what I have seen, 800,000. The least I have seen it drop is 12.4% in damage, and the most I've seen is 34%. To put this in layman's terms, the chest piece is no longer worth it. Especially when you consider the difference between not using or using the chest, depending on how you were set up. If you basically went for a standard crit build and used the HeartBreaker chest versus a standard crit build using the Closer chest with HeartBreaker involved for both, the difference between your overall DPS up to 68 stacks on the HeartBreaker chest, the Closer chest was outperforming you by near enough double the entire way. Like, it's rather comical. You have essentially the Closer chest will outperform you up to about 68 stacks, and then from there you're not going to beat the Closer chest by much. It was like 7.4% difference. The top end overall damage from both was barely negligible. Like I said, I was doing about the low end of 1.6 mil per shot. The average you can get on a crit build with Heartbreaker on a headshot crit using the Heartbreaker chest was about 1.8 to 1.9 mil. Some people have said they can get into the 2.1s. I have also seen this, but it's normally when they're focusing on an actual headshot build rather than a crit build. There are so many variables that it kind of actually gets really annoying and confusing. And then where people are able to then hit really high damage numbers while still having a few blue cores rather than going for a full red core build. In a nutshell, not to tell you guys how to play, I am not like that. If you've watched me before, I'm not sitting there and telling people you should or should not do whatever. My point for this video quite simply is that the Heartbreaker chest is no longer really even, well, for me it was never really that good in the first place, but I understand why a lot of people would say it is no longer absolutely worth it. It is mediocre at best. This is the build that I'm going to suggest to you. You can see it's a rough DPS in the range, hitting some pretty good damage numbers here, as you can see, 1.4 mil, and then with Sleep Near, which is what I run as well, you can see I'm easily hitting about 1 mil a shot, and my DPS is actually pretty good. I'll just reset it here. So my DPS easily goes up to about the 10, 11 mil DPS. It can go higher when I'm feeling a bit more accurate. Anyway, 4-piece Heartbreaker build. Using Kingbreaker with all the obvious talents, damage targets out of cover, damage to health. The 4-piece Heartbreaker, they all have critical damage rolls. I'm not using the chest or the backpack. For the backpack, I am using Cheska with crit chance, crit damage, and for the chest, it's crit chance, crit damage. Vigilance on the talent on the backpack, it is the named closer chest. I have 55% crit chance and 117% crit damage. I can easily get to 60%. I quite like using an accuracy and a stability mod on the weapon just to help it out a bit. This is what I run. I humbly suggest that you guys maybe look into running a different Heartbreaker setup. I am still looking for a closer chest piece with crit chance, crit damage already on, so I can change the blue core to a red core, which will probably put me on par with my previous damage anyway, which then would mean that my build has not been nerfed in any way, shape or form. Anyway, have fun, good luck, don't die. It's bad for the health.